The internet didn't just whisper this time, it screamed. 1 minute, timelines were filled with memes and nonsense like usual, and the next minute, Chrisean Jr.'s name was plastered everywhere next to the words "falls ill," and somehow. Then Karlissa allegedly dropped a comment so reckless it felt like someone hit the red emergency button on social media, casually mentioning worms like that's something you just toss into public conversation without consequences. And, just when people were still processing that, Chastity slid into the situation, dragging Chrisean with shade so sharp it could cut glass. This wasn't a slow burn scandal, this was an explosion. Screenshots flew, reactions stacked, and suddenly, everybody online turned into a detective, a judge, and a moral authority all at once. If you thought family drama was messy before, this chapter kicked the door off its hinges. Because when a child's illness becomes public debate, sarcasm turns savage, and the internet smells blood, you already know this story is about to go places nobody can control. The second the phrase Chrisean Jr. falls ill hit the timeline, the internet did what it always does best. It panicked loudly and thought quietly, if at all. At first, the reactions looked almost respectful on the surface. Prayer hands flooded comment sections, people typed sending love without spelling love correctly, and concern posts stacked up like performative sympathy on autopilot. But that calm lasted about as long as a Snapchat story, because once Karlissa allegedly mentioned the word worms, the entire narrative swerved off the road, flipped 3 times, and landed upside down in the middle of public outrage. That single word didn't just raise eyebrows, it set the whole platform on fire. Suddenly, nobody cared about updates or clarity anymore. The internet latched onto that word like it was a winning lottery ticket. Screenshots were shared faster than explanations, and reactions poured in before anyone stopped to ask if context even existed. People replayed clips like it was the Zapruder film, slowing them down, zooming in, analyzing tone, and arguing over whether the comment was concern gone wrong or recklessness on full display. Karlissa instantly became the center of a new storm, with half the internet accusing her of saying something wildly inappropriate and the other half insisting she was being real in a world addicted to sugarcoating. Nuance never stood a chance. As the speculation spread, the focus shifted back to Chrisean, and not gently. The internet has a habit of turning worry into judgment, and this was no exception. Old clips resurfaced, old arguments were recycled, and suddenly her entire past was being re-litigated in the court of public opinion. People started stitching together unrelated moments to build a storyline that felt convincing enough to fuel outrage. Motherhood became the battleground, and strangers who had never met her felt qualified to pass verdicts based on vibes, timelines, and selective memory. Empathy took a back seat while hot takes grabbed the steering wheel. What made this phase especially chaotic was how fast the rumor evolved. It didn't stay as Karlissa mentioned worms, it transformed into exaggerated retellings that sounded more extreme with every repost. Each caption added a little extra spice, each reaction video turned the volume up another notch. Before long, people weren't even discussing what was actually said anymore. They were debating what they felt it meant. And feelings, as we all know, are undefeated on social media. Facts move slow, but outrage sprints. Then came the commentary disguised as concern. Influencers popped up with serious faces and dramatic music, pretending they were breaking news anchors while reading off comments they found 10 minutes earlier. Some claimed they were worried for the child, while spending most of the video criticizing Chrisean's character. Others framed their takes as neutral, but neutrality somehow always leaned toward blame. The line between awareness and exploitation blurred so badly you couldn't tell which was which anymore. The algorithm rewarded whoever sounded the most shocked, not whoever sounded the most reasonable, and just as the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife, Chastity entered the narrative with shade that didn't whisper, it announced itself. Whether it was a post, a comment, or a reaction that landed a little too perfectly timed, the internet clocked it instantly. Shade has a way of validating the audience's worst instincts, and once it appeared, the floodgates opened. People shared her words with laughing emojis, applauding the drag while ignoring the gravity of the situation. Others called it tasteless, arguing that this wasn't the moment for sarcasm. But disagreement didn't slow anything down. It only added fuel. At this point, the story stopped being about a child's illness and turned into a full-blown spectacle of loyalty tests and moral posturing. People weren't asking what happened anymore, they were asking who they should be mad at. Supporters and critics squared off in comment sections like it was a championship match. Every reply came with screenshots, every argument came with a receipt that proved absolutely nothing. The louder someone spoke, the more confident they sounded, and confidence was mistaken for truth. What made this chapter even more unsettling was how quickly humor crept into the chaos. Memes started circulating, some subtle, some outright disrespectful, but all of them spreading like wildfire. Jokes replaced discussion, and sarcasm replaced sensitivity. The internet laughed its way through a situation that should have demanded restraint, proving once again that virality and empathy rarely coexist. When something becomes meme-worthy, it stops being human in the eyes of the timeline. Meanwhile, Chrisean was boxed into an impossible corner. Silence was interpreted as guilt. Speaking out was labeled damage control, and emotion was dismissed as manipulation. No response would ever be the right response because the audience had already decided how the story should end. The goalposts kept moving, ensuring the outrage machine stayed well fed. Every update, real or imagined, was twisted to fit the narrative people were already invested in. Karlissa's name continued to trend alongside arguments about intent and accountability. Some insisted she was being unfairly attacked. Others argued that public speculation about a child's health crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. The debate grew louder, but clarity never arrived. Instead, the story expanded outward, pulling in side characters, old grudges, and unrelated drama that had been waiting for an excuse to resurface. It was no longer a single incident. It was a compilation. By the end of this phase, the tension was suffocating. The internet had taken a serious situation and turned it into a referendum on character, parenting, and loyalty. Lines were drawn, and as the noise reached its peak, one thing became clear: this was only the beginning, and the next wave of chaos was already loading. The moment the internet thought it had exhausted every angle, it found a brand new one and sprinted toward it at full speed. That's how these stories work. They don't cool down, they mutate. What started as shock turned into performance, and suddenly everyone online wasn't just reacting anymore, they were auditioning for the loudest take. Reaction. Videos multiplied like gremlins after midnight. People pulled out ring lights, folded their arms, and stared into the camera like they were about to deliver a court verdict, not a hot take based on screenshots and vibes. The phrase "falls ill" became background noise, while the word "worms" took center stage like it was the headline of the century. Memes took over before any real clarification ever could. Some were thinly veiled, others blatantly reckless, but all of them spread because controversy wrapped in humor travels faster than truth. Jokes landed in timelines next to prayer posts, and nobody seemed to notice the whiplash. One scroll felt like a vigil, the next felt like a roast. That emotional inconsistency is social media's specialty. It turns serious situations into entertainment without ever acknowledging the shift. And once something becomes memeable, it becomes unstoppable. Karlissa's name stayed glued to the conversation, but now the narrative around her split into factions. One side painted her as careless, accusing her of throwing around loaded words without thinking about the fallout. The other side reframed her as brutally honest, claiming people were only mad because she didn't sugarcoat reality. The argument stopped being about what she allegedly said and became a referendum on how much honesty the internet can handle before it calls it cruelty. Every clip was reposted with different captions, each one nudging the audience toward a specific conclusion. Context got lost somewhere between the repost and the reaction. Then the celebrity-adjacent reactions started trickling in, and those always make things worse. A like here, a vague quote there, a cryptic post that felt just specific enough to be intentional but just vague enough to deny. The internet dissected every move like it was decoding a treasure map. A single emoji sparked debates that lasted hours. Silence was treated like an admission, and support was framed as choosing sides. It felt less like commentary and more like a loyalty test where nobody actually knew the rules. Chastity's shade, which had already ignited discussion, now became a reference point. People replayed it, reposted it, and used it to justify their own commentary. For some, it validated their frustration. For others, it symbolized everything wrong with how this situation was being handled. Either way, it escalated the tone. Shade has a way of giving the audience permission to be less careful, and once that permission is granted, restraint disappears completely. The conversation got sharper, meaner, and more confident in its lack of empathy. Pop culture comparisons flooded in, because the internet can't process chaos without analogies. People compared this to infamous celebrity family implosions, messy reality TV arcs, and scandals that once dominated headlines. Some joked that this was darker than scripted drama because there was no producer to yell cut. Others said it felt like a social experiment gone wrong, where everyone failed the empathy test at the same time. Humor became a coping mechanism, but it also became a weapon. Laughter softened the discomfort just enough for people to keep watching without feeling guilty. As the noise grew, the scrutiny on Chrisean intensified. Every past controversy was dragged back into the spotlight and reframed as foreshadowing. Critics stitched together old moments like they were building a conspiracy board, while supporters pushed back, accusing the internet of using concern as a disguise for long-standing dislike. The debate wasn't about facts anymore, it was about narratives. And narratives are flexible. They bend to fit whatever someone already believes. The comment sections turned into war zones. People weren't talking to each other, they were talking past each other. Every reply came with screenshots, every screenshot came with assumptions, and every assumption was treated like proof. The louder someone typed, the more authority they claimed. Reasonable voices got drowned out because outrage has better engagement. The algorithm doesn't reward nuance, it rewards intensity. And this story had intensity in excess. What made this phase especially surreal was how quickly people began predicting outcomes. Careers were speculated about, relationships were analyzed, and futures were written in comment sections like fan fiction fueled by anger. People spoke with certainty about consequences that hadn't happened, as if declaring them would make them real. The story no longer needed updates to survive. It fed on speculation alone, looping endlessly as long as people kept reacting. At the same time, a quieter discomfort started creeping in for some viewers. Beneath the jokes and the arguments, there was an unease that this had gone too far. A few voices questioned why a child's situation had become a trending topic in the first place. Others pointed out the contradiction of claiming concern while sharing memes. Those voices didn't dominate the conversation, but they planted a seed. The tone began to shift from explosive to uneasy, like a party that went on too long and suddenly felt awkward. Still, the chaos didn't stop. It just changed shape. Instead of explosive outrage, it became simmering judgment. Opinions solidified. People picked their sides and settled into them comfortably. The story wasn't as loud as it had been at its peak, but it was heavier. The kind of heavy that doesn't disappear when the trend does. And as the internet prepared to move on to the next spectacle, it left behind a trail of assumptions, damaged perceptions, and unresolved tension. By the time the outrage started to thin out, the internet had already moved on emotionally, but the consequences stayed right where they were. That's always the final twist in stories like this. The timeline refreshes, new drama pops up, and attention shifts, but the people involved are left carrying the weight of what went viral without their consent. This situation didn't wrap up with a neat update or a clear explanation that satisfied everyone. Instead, it settled into that uncomfortable aftermath where damage is done quietly, away from trending tabs and reaction videos, For Chrisean, the fallout wasn't loud anymore, but it was heavier. The scrutiny didn't disappear. It matured. Every post she makes now exists under a microscope that wasn't quite this sharp before. Supporters still defend her, but the tone has changed. It's more guarded, more defensive, like they know the grace window closed early. Critics, on the other hand, didn't need new information to stay critical. The narrative had already been written in their minds, and once that happens, reality becomes optional. Silence gets interpreted as avoidance. Happiness gets labeled as insensitivity, and struggle gets questioned for authenticity. The internet doesn't just watch anymore, it keeps score. What's especially cruel is how the original concern gets flattened over time. The conversation slowly drifted away from health and landed squarely on character. Motherhood became a headline instead of a lived experience. The nuance of real life couldn't survive the simplified version that went viral. Even people who claimed to care most about the situation began referencing it like a past episode instead of a real moment that actually affected real people. That's how quickly humanity slips out of focus when drama takes the lead. Karlissa's role in the aftermath solidified into something permanent. Whether she intended it or not, that single mention became her defining moment in this chapter. No amount of clarification can fully outrun a soundbite once it's been clipped, reposted, and remixed by thousands of strangers. To some, she's now forever associated with crossing a line. To others, she's framed as someone who says what others won't. The problem is, the internet doesn't allow for complexity. You're either reckless or real, wrong or right, and once the crowd decides, that label sticks harder than the truth ever could. Chastity's involvement also aged differently once the noise died down. Shade is funny when the crowd is laughing, but it looks different in hindsight. What felt like a sharp moment of commentary became a permanent bookmark in how people interpret her voice. The internet has a long memory for moments where humor collides with seriousness. Some still applaud her for not holding back, while others quietly side-eye the timing. Either way, her name is now tied to the moment, and moments like this don't fade quietly. Beyond individual reputations, the bigger consequence sat with the audience itself. This story forced an uncomfortable mirror on how quickly people turn concern into content. The internet demanded accountability while actively participating in the chaos it criticized. People shared clips for awareness, laughed at memes, just joking, and argued for the child, all while fueling the same machine they claimed to hate. The contradiction was loud, even if most people refused to acknowledge it. Relationships within this circle didn't escape untouched either. Public drama has a way of changing private dynamics permanently. Trust doesn't bounce back easily when personal matters become global conversations. Even if apologies are made or conversations happen behind closed doors, there's no erasing the fact that certain things were said, shared, and amplified publicly. Family issues don't reset after virality, they calcify. Every future interaction now carries the shadow of this moment, whether anyone brings it up or not. What's most unsettling is how this situation will be remembered later. Not as a health scare, not as a moment of concern, but as that drama. That's the curse of the internet. Serious events get reduced to references, jokes, and shorthand. Months from now, someone will bring it up casually in a comment section, detached from its original weight. The child at the center of it all will be an afterthought, while the controversy remains the headline. That's how virality rewrites history. And yet, curiosity still lingers. That's how these stories survive long after they stop trending. There are unanswered questions, unresolved tensions, and the constant possibility of another spark. Everyone involved knows the internet is waiting. One post, one comment, one late-night live session could pull the whole situation back into the spotlight. The audience may pretend to be done, but attention like this never fully disappears. It just waits. The aftermath doesn't offer closure, only clarity. This wasn't really about one comment, one shade-filled moment, or one rumor. It was about how fast the internet turns real life into spectacle and how slowly it deals with the consequences. Reputations were reshaped, trust was strained, and the line between concern and cruelty got blurred beyond recognition. And as the timeline scrolls forward, one truth remains uncomfortable but undeniable. This story didn't end. It simply went quiet. And when it resurfaces, because stories like this always do, it won't come back smaller. It will come back louder, sharper, and even less forgiving than before. And this right here is why you never underestimate how fast the internet can turn one moment into a full-blown spectacle. What started as concern spiraled into commentary, judgment, and entertainment, and now that the noise has quieted, the real questions are finally sitting in the room. Did this go too far? Were lines crossed that can't be uncrossed? Or did the internet do what it always does and confuse outrage for accountability? If you made it this far, you're already thinking it, so don't keep it to yourself. Drop your thoughts in the comments and say what everyone else is dancing around. Who handled this the worst? Who's getting dragged unfairly? And do you think this story is actually over, or just waiting on the next spark? The comments section is where the real conversation happens, and I want to see it moving, because silence is how narratives get rewritten without pushback. And while you're here, smash that like button like it owes you money, because the algorithm doesn't respect quiet opinions. If you want unfiltered breakdowns, sharp commentary, and the stories everybody else is scared to touch, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Scandals don't come with warnings, and when they drop fast. This channel stays locked in where culture, controversy, and chaos collide. We don't sugarcoat, we don't look away, and we don't pretend the internet is innocent in the mess it creates. New stories surface constantly, old ones resurface when you least expect them, and we're always here to connect the dots, because when real life turns into content, someone has